Hello. Hello. Hi. Can everyone please settle down? We'll be starting in a minute. Good evening, councillors and members of the public gallery. My name is Councillor Fahan Rahman, and I will be chairing today's Central Hounslow Area Forum. This is a new style area forum with the initiative of being more engaging and more interactive with our residents. Can I also remind all members that this forum is also being recorded. For those of you who do not want to be on camera, please can you raise your hands now? Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. That's been duly noted by the chap with the camera, people who raise their hands.
Moving on to agenda item number 1. Are there any apologies for absence?
No. None have been sent to me, Chair.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest or any other communications from members? No. Moving on to agenda item number 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 27th January 2022. I was not present on this meeting, so I am not aware of the minutes. Can members please confirm all the minutes are agreed? Moving on to the first presentations from the police officers. We'll have a police report from Superintendent, bear with me a minute, I forgot his name. Superintendent Anthony Bennett. If I could request Superintendent Anthony Bennett to deliver the police report.
Hello everybody, thanks for inviting me to this meeting just to talk a little bit about West Area policing. I'll be covering some general matters around what our priorities are and what we're looking to do and some of the challenges we've had recently in West Area. And then I'll hand over to my colleague, Acting Inspector Binns, just to go through some of the crime figures, just sort of data on those. So I'm Anthony Bennett, so I cover the neighbourhoods role within West Area, which covers Ealing, Hillingdon and Hounslow. So my area responsibility is quite large. And as you can imagine, I've been sitting over some quite significant challenges recently. And one of those challenges really has been how we make our police more visible. I know it's a common complaint that people don't see the police on your streets enough. And with a lot of the commitments we've had recently around the Queen's funeral, Just Stop Oil, Extinction Rebellion, that has all been quite big, significant reductions on us. We've also been facing challenges around our response team resourcing as well. And what that means is some of your neighbourhood officers have had to be used to do those sort of public order incidents and help backfill on response teams, because obviously one of our priorities is that we meet that critical demand. If someone's ringing up for help, that we're there to meet that demand. We have obviously been speaking at all levels around how we resolve that issue. And this week, some firm decisions have been made by our new Commissioner, Mark Rowley, around how we can address those issues. So I won't go into specifics around that, but it does involve other units from across the MPS helping to support the local boroughs in how we police. And so we're expecting some changes to be made very soon and hopefully get more officers and keep them out on the streets, doing the business of engaging with the public and keeping your streets safe from a community policing perspective. We're also looking at how we use our probationers better to help that happen as well. So I do know from speaking at other meetings that that visibility piece is a critical issue with you all, and please be assured we are working hard to address that. And as I say, some critical changes made this week to try and make sure that is the case. Another thing which I'd like to acknowledge as well is the issue around trust and confidence. Some of you may have read the Baroness Casey report, which talked about how we deal with vetting and how we deal with officers that have shown inappropriate behaviour or use inappropriate language. Please be assured there's a lot going on at the moment on our BCU with police in Hounslow around addressing those issues, making sure officers know what the standards are and how they should behave. And we're doing inputs starting last week, this week, and we did some earlier this year as well about what the expectations are and what we expect from them in terms of how we deal with each other internally within the police, how we treat each other within the police, but also how we deal with members of the public and treat members of the public. And some of that involves social media use as well. So we are working hard around that. To help the efforts on the boroughs as well, we have uplifted numbers into our professional standards units. So if someone does come to our attention, the idea is that we can deal with those cases quicker and make sure that any officers that don't hold the standards that we expect are exited from the police force as soon as possible. There's a lot of work going on at this moment in time. Locally, to help that piece, I've introduced a trust and confidence group, which has got police, local authority partners, and some key community contacts that sit on that, where we do review some professional standards issues, areas where trust and confidence in the police has been impacted on, and try and work as a group to look at different ways we can look at those issues and resolve them. And that is an ongoing piece of work which we're working on right at this moment in time. Some of that is also about engagement, so how we engage with communities, particularly communities from underrepresented groups, where traditionally we've mostly failed to do that effectively enough. And very much, I think we're at the stage where, whilst we are taking some actions, we're trying to make sure we actually listen properly to people, listen to what the community concerns are, and then we can build up from there about how we can improve our policing. So some of that involves things like stop and search, where we've got stop and search scrutiny panels with both adults and youths to see how we can do things better, where we talk through some instances where we've utilised stop and search just to try and explain what we're doing, but also learn from public as well. And also that involves looking at how we address the issues of trying to make the community feel safer as well. So one of our priorities alongside trust and confidence is violence, and that includes violence against women and girls. So as part of that, we've done a lot of changes over recent months around making sure our public protection unit that sits over sexual offences, crimes, is actually properly staffed, and that any vacancies are filled. And we've uplifted inspectors, chief inspectors, into those positions, and also PCs, to try and make those investigations more thorough and that we support victims of crime better. So again, all that is there to bolster our trust and confidence and try and encourage people to come forward where they have suffered those type of offences, to make sure they're reported to us and that they remain confident that we can secure convictions in those offences. And some of that involves working with the Criminal Prosecution Service to make sure that we're approaching things in the right way. And as I say, victims are being supported effectively. Around come back to visibility piece, so a lot of confidence in policing is around visibility. So the Commissioner is committing to uplifting the number of PCSOs. So across the whole MPS, I think they're looking to introduce 1,600 PCSOs. How that break down to Hounslow, that's obviously still to be looked at and agreed, but that would increase visibility on your streets in terms of a police presence. And having supervised PCSOs at sergeant level, inspector level, the benefits which a PCSO can bring are quite substantial. Also, they get abstracted from their daily roles less than police officers, so it should mean more of a permanent presence on your streets to help the officers on those wards. Obviously, as I said, we've done increased engagement opportunities, so we are trying to enhance how much we engage with young people. So we are looking at working through workshops where we bring young people along to just get their ideas around stop and search, how they think police should improve. And also we're very much engaging with faith communities around the Ealing, Hillingdon and Hounslow, and we're looking at introducing more self-reporting hubs where people can go, get the support of their community leaders where they feel they need to report crime. Because we know a lot of people don't always want to speak to police officers as well. So that's another thing we're introducing to understand what type of crimes are happening on our area and then to take action accordingly. So hopefully you can see a lot of those changes have been brought in by the Commissioner. And one of the main changes you might see is, and I've been given permission from the Chief Superintendent to mention this tonight, so I'm not sure how widely it is known, but years ago, each borough used to have their own superintendent lead. And at the moment, from a neighbourhood perspective, you've got me, unfortunately, which I have to split across the other areas. I'll try my best, but as you can imagine, it's quite a challenge. But early next year, we'll be moving to a model where each borough will have their own superintendent. So the idea is that they'll engage more deeply with partners and have a more concentrated focus at a strategic level in making a difference to your area. So I'm glad to report that will be coming online again, as I say, early next year as well. So, we're in a new period. We've got a new commissioner. He's making real decisions which will impact on yourselves, impact on us in a positive way. And just give an idea what I've just talked about then, about how that fits into his priorities. Very much he's indicated that his time will be very much based on more trust, and that's internally within the police and with communities, less crime, and also high standards. And hopefully I've given you a flavour in a very brief way about what we're trying to do around those areas. But with that, I think there will be time for questions at the end of the session, but I'll hand over to Mike, who can take through some of the crime figures.
Sorry, what was that?
Have you been provided with some of the information about the crime figures for Hounslow, and how much detail would you like me to go into? It's quite a lot to discuss, all we can put it out to the floor for people to ask questions.
I believe we have, if for those of you who don't know where it is, it's on the agenda at page number 7.
If I can just interrupt a moment, Chair. We haven't received the figures for Hounslow West and Hounslow Heath. We
Hounslow Heath. Okay, I've got some figures here for Hounslow West. I can certainly dig through for the Hounslow Heath. This is the first forum I've come to. I can give you a lot of information that might not mean a great lot. So I just wanted to break down what do you want to hear from us in figures-wise. What figures are you looking for? Are you looking for our arrests or where we're spending our time? Because I can certainly concentrate on that. Just get an idea of what you'd like to hear. Because it's the first time I've been to one of your forums. You've got quite a complex sheet there of data, I understand.
We will we'll be taking questions once the report's done.
Okay.
So then the public will ask you from there.
Okay, well, I'll just elaborate then. So I'm looking after many wards from Cranford right through to Chiswick. Many wards there. The information that we provide in advance will detail a lot about our stop and searches, our arrests from there, where we're spending a lot of our time, our walk and talks, and what we've managed to do. And obviously we're introducing coffee with a copper to try and break down some of the barriers that the superintendent's mentioned. So for people who want to come and meet and greet their local officers and have that informal chat, rather than logging on or phoning in to share information. This is the point I was going to get at too, is just that the many wards within Hounslow, I could go through that. I'm very conscious of the time, and I'm going to give you numbers and dates about what we've done, but I don't know if that's actually what the crowd here want to hear. So I just want to elaborate what's the information like, and I appreciate you want to do sort of questions and answers, but is there something you'd like me to particularly work on? Any sort of crimes of interest at the moment or any problems in the area, and I can elaborate on, rather than just giving you some sort of numbers of walk and talks and coffee with the coppers that we've completed.
Thank you, Inspector Binns. We met the other day at the Gurdwara, and we were very interested in getting the information about Hounslow West and the crime figures, because as you know, there's been quite a few violent incidents recently?
Yes,
Maybe
there
if you
has.
could fill us in on those.
No problem. Well, I will.
Thank you.
So, okay, well, I'll concentrate on Hounslow West because it is a topic of conversation at the moment and significance. As you're aware, we had that very significant and very unfortunate incident last week where one of the ladies that works at the Gurdwara, who was on their way to work one morning, was attacked. I just want to reassure you, I'm sure you've seen it in the press, that the person that is responsible for that has been charged, has been remanded, and they will not be leaving custody. The court hearings next year. Glad to hear that the female is making a good recovery, and we're due to get some more information from her soon. That was a very isolated incident. I know it's a significant one, and it's given a lot of people a lot to think about, certainly for ourselves. And as we had a discussion, and it may come up in the questions later on about how we can all come together to make sure that the streets do still feel safe for everybody. So I'll move on to that in a little while. In respect of Hounslow West, there hasn't been anything of significance like that. My officers that work in there have had some very good results, but it's results in crimes that you may well be aware of, but not necessarily. Some of the incidents we've had over there are to do with drug dealing, and where that, obviously the drug dealing attracts gang nominals and attention on that. And we've had some significant arrests around that. Now, it's probably why you're not seeing the officers in there, because once they make these arrests, the work involved is quite something to lay the evidence down. Sean Bracken, who's my PC there, is like a dog with a bone. He gets the smell of somebody who's in the area, and he's on him, and he gets the results. And he's just had another good result in the last few days. But as I said, it's a problem why you don't see him. Now, we're very, very aware that where drugs are being sold, it's attracting a lot of vulnerability, county lines, etc. But for me, for Hounslow West, and this is shared with areas of Cranford stuff, we've been focusing a lot on the drug problems. So the incident you've had in Martindale Road is exceptional in a very obviously negative way. So I can reassure you that Hounslow West is a very, very safe place to be. But I appreciate your confidence is been a bit dented recently, and I'll say happy to answer more questions of that. We have had some other significant incidents over the last 6 weeks on the outskirts where we've had some violent crime, and that violent crime, when it's been looked into and we have got the suspects and those suspects have been charged, are not to do with a pattern of behaviour. They are spontaneous incidents of violence, and it could well be to do with drug dealing, it could well be to do with some gang crime, but those people have been arrested, charged, remanded, and we're certainly moving on, learning from there. But certainly for yourselves, if I can just reassure you now, there is no pattern of behaviour within the Hounslow West area that you need to be concerned about that makes it feel for you that it's unsafe to walk the streets. I can honestly assure you that. While we're on the West area, just because I've got it up here, we've over the last October, there have been, doesn't sound like a lot of numbers, but you've got one PC, or two PCs and a PCSO doing this amongst the rest that they've been making. There's been 4 stop and searches which have led to arrests. There's been 5 arrests for August. Mainly those have been to do with drug dealing, and they are quite comprehensive investigations. There's been 2 sessions of Coffee with a Copper where we say we're just encouraging the community to meet us and just have informal chats. And generally where it's informal, we can be in a place for a few hours and people can come to us rather than having strict meeting times. Beaversfield Park, we do get reports about that in respect of, certainly now the nights are drawing in, about some of the robberies. We've had a couple of reports of robberies there. Some people want to engage with us, some people don't. I'll say that the people don't want to engage with us is because they're there for reasons they don't want to explain any further, but we do report them. There's been weapon sweeps in that park by the officers and our specialist officers, and we have recovered certain weapons hidden in some of the foliage, and that will continue. It's a very easy win for us, and that will continue. We still keep getting information from members of the public, what we call airspace reports, which tell us about antisocial behaviour. They get graded, and depending on the severity of those grading, we respond to them in certain ways, and that's where we look for buy-in from our partners and the council and ASB teams to help reduce those. And they're quite low. We're still getting some information, confidential information that we mentioned in the conversation earlier about how people feel comfortable about providing us with information about criminality in their area but remaining anonymous. And I think that's something I'll probably have to speak to some people afterwards about, giving them the confidence that any information you do share with us remains confidential. And we have in the past let cases fail where we've been asked to provide information on the informant, and we won't do so. That's absolutely paramount to us. So that's around Hounslow West, which I think is a topical area at the moment. I can elaborate on some other areas at the moment, but it will be numbers. But if you want some sort of raw information, and maybe it would be better in the question and answer phase.
Thank you. I'm going to open the questions to the councillors. I believe Councillor Chowdhury, then Councillor Kiani, and then Councillor Grewal. And then...
Yeah,
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't.
Councillor Chowdhury first.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
No worries.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for your presentation. Just a quick one to say I have been previously for 8 years attending the Feltham Area Forum, and we used to get the figures well before the time and the proper figures for all the crimes, especially on antisocial behaviours, burglaries, everything. First thing is missing from here, which is a report for my ward. I'm Hounslow Heath Ward Councillor, and we have had previously heard our residents. I've been out and about with Councillor Kiani and Councillor Rahman, talking to our residents about in Benson Close about the antisocial behaviour. I will appreciate it if next time we can have the proper breakdown on all the wards, please.
No
and
problem.
if you have the figures for us today for Hounslow Heath, I would like to have them, please. If you can just let us know what crime rate was in Hounslow Heath, especially
no problem
in
at all.
the Council Estates.
I wasn't aware you wanted to do that much detail. It's not a problem. I can get that. I might not be able to achieve it this evening with the time we've got, but I'd have no problem at all coming back again and getting that for you.
So do you have anything for Hounslow Heath now, like you've explained us about Hounslow West?
Just bear with me a second.
Just while Mike's looking at on antisocial behaviour, across the Hounslow as a whole, we are on our police figures looking at a 30% reduction in antisocial behaviour reports which we're recording. So that's where we are on our side on that. And obviously, you know, we've got the local authority funded teams which help with addressing a lot of that, which I suggest is making a difference, as well as obviously the ward teams as well. So as a whole, so I'd expect from an antisocial behaviour perspective that the ward would hopefully be in line with that sort of reduction. But, you know, obviously it's a very big focus for us. Also, whilst Mike's looking on there, in terms of sexual offences, the vast majority of those recorded are domestic related, just to provide some assurances around that. Crimes of the nature which we saw last week are, you know, absolutely tragic for everybody involved, including the local community, but they are very rare. They are very rare. So, you know, I know that's difficult when you read it. I totally understand. You know, my wife, when she read that story, just thought, you know, made her fear for where we live, never mind in Hounslow. So we fully understand the impact that those have. But you know, our work around that to arrest people was very speedy on that occasion to make sure that he was arrested and brought to custody. And, you know, the vast majority of those offences, we do identify suspects for them. So please be assured that we have invested heavily into that area, both from an investigative perspective, but also from a patrol perspective. So violence against women and girls last year, across the whole BCU area, I think we've had at least about 300 grand's worth of funding put into that to help with additional patrols and some problem solving things like lighting in some areas as well. So, you know, we've heavily invested over the last year or so in the violence against women and girls piece, and things like the walk and talk initiatives. There's the Street Safe, which is, you can go onto the Met Police website and the MOPAC website. Street Safe is somewhere where women can go, and men as well, and report areas where they feel unsafe to walk. And then the idea is we work with the local authorities to try and address those areas and make them feel safer as well. So, you know, beyond what Mike said, there is a lot of work going on. We've got strategy driven by our detective superintendent, Figo Forazan, around violence against women and girls. That includes working with the local authority who are included in on those meetings, trying to work very closely with addressing these issues. So, you know, as I say, tragic incident, but thankfully they are, you know, relatively rare. So just please take that back as some reassurance around that.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to add in, I can understand all the resources and everything going in. Thank you for all your support, what you are talking about here. But it's really helpful if we get a full report on ward by ward, then we can go back to our residents and we can say in the good words that this is the work which has been happening and this is the reduction in the crime what we've had recently. And we'll appreciate if next time we can get the full reports for our wards, please. Thank you.
Yeah, apologies for that. I think we're still getting to speed with the requirements of some of these meetings. So I think we'll just take that back with the teams and make sure that prior to these, again, that we just make sure we get all those reports sent out. So I do please apologise for that. It's nothing to do with Michael. I think it's just one of those things around, we need to remind people we do get change in personnel on the teams. So I think just a ball's been dropped there on our side with some of the wards. So apologies for that.
Councillor Kiani.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask, because we don't have the full report at the moment, but at least can you give us the figures? Is there how many arrests were made in Hounslow Heath, and especially the drug dealing issues in front of Heathland School and Cozy Lounge? That's a cause of concern for many, many residents in our area. I would appreciate a full report next time, but at least if you can give us these figures tonight.
Yeah, again, on the general drug figures, I think in terms of drug crime for Hounslow as a whole, I think we're seeing about a 20% reduction in what we've detected. So you can see that in both ways. Is that because of stop and searches? Maybe we've been focusing on other areas, but I'd like to see that as a big reduction. We've got a big push, particularly around gang activity, which does impact on the drug market. We've had some real good successes in that over the last year. So that 20% reduction, which we've seen in Hounslow, I think is a real achievement. But obviously, the teams are out there every day looking for that, and Mike seems to be out there doing specific operations, as well as our central gangs teams and proactive teams that do that as well. The good thing at the moment around the BCU structure is it does open up a lot more resources for where we've got specific drug issues. So we do flex into those where the intelligence and the information comes in. So I suppose that's where working with communities, trying to encourage people to come forward to report things in their areas bears fruit, because it does go into our tasking meetings. We have to prioritise, obviously, because we've only got finite resources, but where we do have specific information that significant drug dealing is going on or drug usage, then we do try and target those. And I say the figures for Hounslow as a whole do show those reductions sort of being made, but we'll try and get, I think we're struggling to get the reports at the moment, so I think specific questions to the wards, I think if we can just get those to you post the meeting, and then I think if you link in with Michael regarding any questions relating to that, then hopefully we can answer any concerns. Okay.
Can I ask a supplementary question here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, just visibility, police visibility on streets. So can you brief us on that?
Yeah. As I said, it's something which we're very conscientious of, that it's been a noticeable difference in the visibility of officers on the streets. I think it came very evident around the September with Queen's funeral. We had then Extinction Rebellion, then Just Stop Oil. That's also combined. We've got a big IT system being introduced into the Met, which will ultimately make us more efficient, but there's a big training commitment to that as well. So officers have to go on that training. And that's quite a commitment as well. So all those factors have combined to mean that we're in a position which the response teams are understaffed. Now, given the fact that if you dial 999, you need a response to that, that is our critical demand, which we have to then rely on some neighbourhood resources to try and meet that demand. So there have been some significant abstractions from the neighbourhood teams over the last couple of months to try and help meet that demand. As I said, those things which I mentioned around trying to help address that, they're being put in place as we speak, really. So I'd hope we see some immediate benefits from that. The training should be finished by December. So again, those obstructions for the training will cease. So hopefully you'll start seeing in the next month more officers on your streets. But we need to continue working hard to do that. And definitely the PCSOs, they are worth their weight in gold. So that uplift to 1,600, albeit not all going to be in Hounslow, but even so, that still gives us a good increase in visible uniform policing on the streets. So it is something we're working on. We're very keenly, I've had a couple of meetings today already around that visibility and making sure we get the neighbourhood officers back on the streets. And they're out there, they are doing some good work, so they're not totally disappeared. There's just not as many out there at the moment that we would like, but please rest assured they are out there on the streets doing the work. Where there's a critical demand, we're making sure we get officers into there and making sure they're policed. And hopefully after some of the incidents that you've seen over recent weeks in Hounslow, we've been able to flex a number of officers into those locations to provide reassurance as well. So where we need to, we've got the officers and we'll put them in there. It's just some of the nice to do things at the moment we have to just put on the back burner.
Councillor Grover.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for a nice presentation, Superintendent. We are lucky. I'm from Hounslow Central Ward. We are lucky we got extra 21 officers for the High Street. And our neighbourhood ward meetings are regular. We meet every 3 months and we get all the report. So thank you for that. The problem is, even with those 21 extra officers, Hounslow Town Centre has got a mega problem with the beggars now. Lately, for the last couple of weeks, they are big numbers there. They're really aggressive. They force people. If they don't give them anything, they really give them abuse. And I've been told they're organized, proper organized criminals doing it. And I've seen them when they go for coffee, they haven't got that disability. The disability only there when they ask for it. And what are we doing about that, please? Because people are quite upset at the moment for that.
Well, I'll take back to the town centre team because that's the sort of thing they should really be getting on top of. So if that's not the case, I can take that back and ask them to look at it and make contact with you to discuss that. I know from what the teams are bringing back in terms of work returns, they are out in the town centre. A bit like the neighbourhood teams, they must have been impacted a little bit with the having to sort of help with the public order side of things in London, as well as the response work as well. So they'll be slightly impacted on that. So that may have led to some of those challenges of those individuals not happening as regularly as we would like. But they are still out there. I was speaking to the team later on, just a few hours before this meeting. So they're out there policing it. But I will take that back. If that's a visible difference you're seeing at the moment compared to what it was a few months back, that shouldn't be the case with the teams we've got. So we'll take that back and have a look at it. If it's a persistent issue, what I'd like to see is the town centre team linking in with the local authority and going out on joint patrols to see what help we can offer those individuals. I know some of them don't want help, and that's the nature of it. But I think there's stuff we can do on the partnership side to try and enact longer term change rather than just policing, because that can be just short termist sometimes. But I'll take that back as an issue.
Thank you for that. Just supplementary.
Oh, sorry, I've got one of the town centre team, Sergeant, sorry.
Yep.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, rather. My name is Bilal. I'm one of the sergeants on the town centre team. In response to your question, when we got implemented, I don't know if anyone knows about us, but we're unique in the town centre. The Hounslow Town Central Ward got split into a smaller section, which is a town centre team. And we got 1 inspector, 3 sergeants and 21 police officers just for the town centre, which extends up to where the underground stations are. So we've got quite a big, busy ward. We saw a number of issues when we started, and there were the antisocial behaviour, robberies on the high street, and we targeted that the first 6 months, which all came down within the town centre. In relation to the begging, we are now actively running a number of operations in the high street. We've been looking at getting CBOs, so community behavioural orders, which take on average about 6 months to obtain, getting all the evidence. So in the last 6 months, we've got 3 individuals who are we class as persistent offenders on the begging side. They are now on community protection notices, and we've got 1 which is now successfully on a behavioural order, which is from the courts. So we've got 4 people that we are actively looking at and we are arresting regularly. In relation to the beggars with the crutches, I know there is a group of them and they do come from outside of the West area, policing area. We are linking in with other sectors within the Met where they know of these people and they've got a record for the last year. So if we can work in conjunction with them, it'll be easier for us to get the CBOs, which we are doing. And as the superintendent has mentioned, we've been to meetings with the council, and I did see Josh here earlier, sitting on the other side, and we are working with him and his teams where we're doing joint patrols on the high street where we can. When the council and we've got operations, Josh and his team do come to our events on the high street. Park rangers, and there are Park Guard and other outside organisations where we are doing joint patrols to deal with a number of issues. The high street is unique with the footfall. It's probably the only high street I've ever been to which, no matter what day, term time or not, it is busy. We have a lot of police officers out there. Figures-wise, stop and search, just to give you an idea, so just my town centre team, not including what Inspector Binns has spoken about, in the past 6 months we've done 161 stop and searches where 53 of them have been positive, and that's way above the Met average. We're stopping the right people, we are stopping, and we're getting results out of that. 51 people have been sent to court from the work we've done. With the luxury of the numbers we do have on our team, and we are, as I said, very unique, having the 21 police officers, it's allowed us to do 121 engagement events in the last 6 months, whether that's been with businesses, other agencies, or the community, and allowed us to do 279 directed patrols. That is massive compared to the other sectors, but it is the luxury we do have. There are a lot of things that we are also doing in regards to operations, working with youth centres, community groups at the moment. The antisocial behaviour for those who do shop in Hounslow around the McDonald's area. We're working with the businesses and again with Josh's team, trying to get Wi-Fi turned off at certain points so these people are not congregating there. So these are things we are looking at, but they're not easy fixes because businesses have their criteria, what they want to do, and what we want is not sometimes what the businesses want because obviously they're looking at their profits. We have the events on the high street and I would welcome wherever you live in the West area to come to the events, let us know what the problems are because we all end up in Hounslow. So as soon as you cross the road out there, you're on my patch. So I would like to know what the issues are. And I know the inspector and the superintendent won't be out there, but my team will. Some of the faces I recognise from this meeting here tonight, and I'm more than happy to share my details at the end of this event. So if you've got problems, let us know. The teams are working hard, harder than I've ever seen police officers work. In 10 years, they're doing so much, staffing up other teams, doing all the events, but they are still 100% committed to policing Hounslow and making it better for you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. That's really true. Thank you.
Sorry, supplementary?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for that, and I'm quite happy with the figures going down in Hounslow Central. Josh was there in the last meeting as well with us, and we were quite happy about the numbers. But can you tell me, when you issue a CPO to these beggars, do you also arrest them at the same time, or just give...
So with the CPOs, they have a power of arrest because they're issued by the courts. So we will arrest them. It's only if that person has it, so they have to be actively begging and we can see it. We have the luxury of very good cameras with Hounslow Council, which we use a lot. Getting the evidence is the difficult bit. That's why it takes 6 months. We have to go through giving them warnings and giving them a notice, then they breach it, then we sit with the council, they do their part, and then we send it up to the courts. So we've got one so far. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a lot of policing hours that go into getting one. We are looking to issue 2 more, I've been told of today, for 2 of the local residents who are homeless, and they issue. The one that's been given a CBO, that's part of what we call the organised group. So they come in together. Recently, I've been told how they get here. We didn't know that before. So we are working with the picture, building it with people. But a lot of the people we're getting the information from do not see us in a good light. So we are trying to build that relationship first. These groups are being brought into Hounslow way before most people wake up in the morning, and they stay in the area, and then they start working when everyone gets up. So we are trying our best. But to your question, yes, we do arrest the ones with CBOs.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've seen a few hands from the members of the public. We're not open to public yet. It's currently with the councillors. I will let you know once it's open to the members of the public. It's meant to be Councillor Mayor next, but I'm sure Councillor Grewal has a question for Sergeant Aziz.
No, that's all right. I can come in at the end.
Yeah, no problem. Councillor Mayor?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just wanted to, a couple of questions for the Inspector and Superintendent, primarily based around, so in the light of recent events, there has been, I can confirm there's been high visibility in the Hounslow West area in particular. I've seen officers over the weekend, doesn't matter what time of the day. However, this has not been the case prior to the event. Could you confirm, firstly, how many officers are there still delegated per ward or area, and what their schedule is is it daily, few times a day, or is it 7 days of the week? Secondly, could you also confirm the number of officers that you've got there? And finally, I think a few of the residents raised an issue regarding this particular incident, which that just took place on Martindale Road, where this particular person, a suspect, that's been arrested, was unlicensed and was known for the same incident prior to this incident actually occurring. Is that correct? And how would that be avoided in the future? Thank you.
If I start with the staffing, so for Hounslow West, you have one permanent dedicated ward officer, PC Bracken. You have currently we should have a colleague, which colleague's currently away ill at the moment. We have a rotation officer who come in every 6 months, and then when someone else takes over, that's part of their probation, and we have a dedicated PCSO. So when we're up to strength, you'll have 2 officers, 1 rotation officer who won't be a permanent member of the team, and a PCSO for Hounslow West. As I touched on earlier, with Hounslow West, I understand why you probably haven't seen him, and I'm probably partly to blame because some of the crimes that we've been dealing with, I've made a bit of a tactical assessment, and quite often being high-vis doesn't work for us because the people we're looking for see you coming. The downside is that you don't see the police in your streets, but they are there, and then occasionally I've asked them to go out in a plain car to look for certain people, just to give us that tactical advantage. As I said before, the crime that happened in Martindale Road is extremely rare. We've been out looking for, we had some reports about some burglaries, which we've been spending a lot of time on, and they were unfounded. We couldn't identify a suspect for that, and we were a bit dubious about how, if it was a burglary or if it was some criminal damage. But we have had some issues with drug dealing in certain communal areas, and I think it comes back to the environmental factors of Hounslow West, where it's convenient in some areas for dealers and users to come together to openly buy the drugs. And PC Bracken has created quite a picture of the people he thinks responsible. And going into the point of county lines territory, which I think you're probably aware is quite a big issue, and he's had some significant results. So not only have I been putting him out there in plain clothes to try and catch the people, but then he's been very successful, and he's not been out on the streets as much as I'd like him to. It's one of those things. What I have asked him to do, and he has been doing, is once he's had a very good result, is to get out there with his team in high-vis to make up for the time that he's spent out there and also to fly the flag. But he's spread quite thin at the moment, partly due to his success, and as we touched on earlier, partly because we've had to give some officers to the response teams to meet the high demand of 999 calls that have been coming in. I think you could probably appreciate if you do dial 999, you want an officer turning up, and we've had to fulfil that. So it has been a bit thin on the ground. So that's to answer your question about visibility. It's not been as good as it should. And the reason why it got really good recently is because we had this significant event. We need to make sure we're on the streets, speaking with the residents to tell them that we are here, we are aware of what's going on, answering questions that they might not get the chance to do, and having that engagement. And also for ourselves, having a look at the area and saying, why did it happen? Why did it happen here? In relation to the individual, it's still a live investigation. There's very little I can say, but it is out in the public domain. It's free information that the individual was known and was on a licence as part of the Ministry of Justice review.
Okay. Just around the numbers, across our the whole BCU area, we are only by about 2 officers overstaffed on ward teams. Individual wards can fluctuate, so if there's a sickness or someone has just left, sometimes there'll be a gap whilst we recruit someone into that post. But generally, the ward teams, we do try and keep those as full as our numbers, our given numbers are allowed. In terms of our processes around individuals that might be on licence, for example, we do have processes in place. Obviously, in instances where those people offend, those processes are looked at, but there are rigorous processes in place to monitor individuals. But that doesn't mean that people get 24-hour surveillance across these things. So nothing is infallible in relation to that. I say I can't go into details relating to the individual that you're referring to, but definitely internally we have our own teams that sort of deal with such individuals and look to monitor those. So those are in place. Obviously they're reviewed regularly to see how efficient and good they are, and no doubt that's something which we'll continue to do. But we can't be saying much more because the judicial process needs to be allowed to progress now.
Yeah, thank you, Superintendent. So the only other, I think, point your colleague raised was on the rotation of officers. I think that's one of the issues that's leading to the continuous chain of drug dealing and all the rest of that. Because if you have officers for 6 months or whatever, and then rotation, then you have another bunch of 3 officers, which has been the case for the last 4 or 5 years that I've been a councillor of. So I think having spoken to one of the commanders for the Hounslow, Ealing, Hillingdon a couple of days ago, one of your events, he confirmed that the intent is to have fixed officers for individual or specific wards, as opposed to having on rotation-based officers, which then means individual officers for individual wards are aware of the continuous crimes and the repetitive incidents, and they know the hotspots, which is actually the ideal way we would, as councillors and people within the borough, prefer. Could you confirm that's the case?
I totally agree that our preference is for permanent officers. So on each ward there should be at least one permanent officer per ward, and it may be that we do then pair them up with an officer that's on rotation. So rotations are within someone's probation period, the first 2 years, to give them experience of different elements of policing. They are rotated within response teams and then neighbourhood teams, and also our violence suppression unit as well. So they're rotated across those 3 areas to give them a flavour and an understanding to help their development of policing. So our preference is that we have permanent officers in those posts, obviously, for exactly the reasons which you're stating there. There is a recruitment drive to try and get more people to apply for the police in London. That will take some time to filter through in terms of realistic uplift in officers that can meet all those vacancies that we do have, but that is an ongoing. So our outreach programme has been designed to do that, particularly focused around underrepresented communities. So they'll be out, they'll come to some of the key events in the borough, trying to recruit people. They'll turn up in the town centres and, as I say, speak to people about joining the police. So there's a big push to get more numbers in the police. So as those numbers come through, and it is a challenge, so I'm not painting a picture that this is going to be an immediate change, they would then be placed into where our vacancies are. So then you potentially could end up with 2 permanent officers on the ward, which would be our preference, and that is in place in a number of wards. And then your probationary constables will be on top of that. So you'd actually end up with 2 permanent officers, but you still have officers on rotation just to give a bit of an uplift in numbers. But all that is dependent on getting people joining the police. And as you can imagine, with the stories which we've all seen in the press about the disgraceful behaviour of Metropolitan Police officers using racist, misogynistic language, offences, obviously you've got tragic case of Sarah Everard, those sort of incidents dent the confidence in some people to join the police, understandably, particularly from underrepresented communities. So that's the barrier we have to try and get over, and we need to work hard to do that. So some of that, the whole trust and confidence piece, again, an element of that is to try and encourage people to join the police, because it's only by getting the police to look like the communities it serves, do you truly get a lot of that trust and confidence back, and that's what we need to try and do. So recruitment's a challenge, but definitely we're driving towards getting permanent officers in place, substantive officers in place, and not rely so much on rotations.
Thank you. Councillor Sharma? Thank you. Could you put your mic on, please? Your mic.
Chair, on the minutes, last meetings, page 4, the second paragraph, you can see that I raised this issue. And it's not only I raised the issue in my ward, I think these issues are often raised by Councillor Garewal, Pritam Garewal, and my friend now, Mr. Mayor. He has done again, highlighted this problem. And this problem, particularly now, first time, a serious incident that happened. It's the first time that happened, and we, in our wards, we all colleagues work together and highlight the issues so that the police in our area could take and show something concrete that this is what you brought to our notice and this is what we have done. As you can see, I have appreciated always whenever a good work is done by the police, and we always always say that we want to work along with the police force every time. Whatever police will expect from the members, we will be always there to support you. But rather, us supporting, we can do our support in some other ways with our officers. But I think the police force can do a lot. And I will appreciate that these wards, particularly Heath Ward, Hounslow West Ward, and Cranford, these 3-4 wards are where there is a concentration of these sort of problems, where these problems are. Those people have in the other wards also raised this, but there is a concentration of people who are involved in these criminal activities. And particularly, certainly in Hounslow West Ward, in the Beavers Park, we had all this problem. And sometimes the ladies, they are not very happy to go in the evening through the park. So what I want to say is that when public highlights something for us, we highlight either in the committee or individually we meet the officers who work in our wards. And there are officers who have been excellent, doing a good job, but certainly I think something more is needed, particularly when you know the details. This is a very horrible, I think, this incident. Never such thing happened. What happened in my ward, Hounslow West Ward. So I will appreciate that if you could let us know that this is what we expect the members to do, and we can also talk to the general public. There are many people who are very willing to support the police, to support the members, and I hope that something concrete is done from this incident that happened last week. Thank you.
Yeah, I fully share your feelings, and it will. And I don't stand here and just give you words, but as you said, it's a very, thankfully, very occasion, but it was a very horrendous one, and it will. And there's a lot of work going on. I think we had a bit of a chat with some people in the room before we had this talk tonight about how a lot of the community come together, and you can see it's a very strong community, about how things have probably developed in respect of environmental changes in the area and changes we can make. And I'll leave that for the questions and answers later. But you're absolutely right. But if people want to come and walk with us out there, we've been trying to encourage it with the coffee for a copper, but they come absolutely fine by us, totally. There'll be certain occasions where it's not practicable. When I've got Mr. Bracken out in plain clothes looking for people, it might not help his cause. But if you want to come out and walk with us for a particular reason, you just email us. All our email addresses and contact data updated. More than happy to do that, because you could probably give us information that we're not quite seeing sometimes, because you are the people that live and breathe the area. If that answers your question, so yeah, I totally share your feelings. Just let us know what you want to do.
Thank you.
But if we do get a serious incident happening, my expectation is that the sergeants for that ward do contact the local councillor and just make them aware and have a conversation. And I'd expect that interaction to be where, any support offers can then be discussed. So that'd be my expectation. And very much we try and ask the sergeants to do that. And obviously we do contact other partners, when these things happen. But definitely the ward councillors should be those people that we're contacting, having the conversations around the support, and also to get a feeling for those community concerns as well.
Yes, sir.
Whatever the police has said.
Sir, I've mentioned that we're currently dealing with questions from the councillors, I will let the public know once it's open to public. So I will take your question, but just a bit later on. Thank you. Moving on, Councillor Said. And can we keep it to one question at a time, please? Because I do want to open it to the public.
Yeah, good evening. I know we've already taken a long time. These are 3 tiny questions. One you've almost actually already mentioned, actually. It was about the drive to recruit more officers. I just wonder, throughout London and particularly in Hounslow, what the take-up is with the East European and Somali community. Another thing I'd like to sort of just ask about is you're talking about coffee with coppers. How are you getting that information out that these things are available, these initiatives are going on? I've never heard of them, and I'm sure quite a few of us haven't heard. So, I mean, they sound a fabulous idea, but unless people are aware of them, nobody's going to come along. And the last thing, which is just quickly, there were at one stage in the High Street lots of signs talking about the pickpockets. Presumably you've got the same regular pickpockets. So do you sort of have not a wanted poster per se, but something along those lines for the business owners there?
I'll just answer the recruitment question first. So I don't have specific numbers with me today, so maybe that's something we can take back and have a look at. But in terms of the outreach programme and applications coming in terms of the BCU, we are one of the better areas in London for getting applications in from underrepresented communities. So in terms of the programme and the people that Outreach is looking to encourage to join, we have been very successful with the team that we've got. And we've got a dedicated team locally working on that. But the specific community breakdowns, I don't have that. So we'll take it back and sort of see if we can get those. In terms of the pickpocket, I'll come to Bilal first, if that's okay.
Hi, Councillor. Just in relation to your questions, first one I got was the coffee with a copper. So on the high street, I know my team put posters out. They use the OWL platform, so I don't know how many people are on the OWL platform. And I know the Hounslow Central team were pushing that message out for my team in particular. So we are using those platforms. So that's how we're getting. So I don't know if you live within my footprint, so you might not get our messages, but we hold them every Tuesday between 2 and 4 p.m. on McDonald's, because that's central. So Hounslow Town Centre team will always provide officers. If for some reason resourcing is not available, we'll try and push the message out, but sometimes we can't because it's last minute changes. In regards to the pickpockets and the big yellow signs, is that what you're referring to? Yeah, so we had an increase around March, April time where it really spiked. We had one of the officers on my team introduced Operation Nogan, which was a mixture of plain clothes and uniform presence, and we flooded the areas and we had really good results. So we identified about 15 pickpockets. None of the females, and they were all females. They got away with a lot initially because of COVID, masks, etc. So we couldn't identify a lot. But as restrictions got easier, we started identifying them. It doesn't mean that pickpocket has finished, because you look at the number of people in Hounslow, a lot of people are making themselves easy targets. And now we've reverted to, if we see females with buggies, we stop them now. And we give them advice. If you're shopping, do not leave your buggy, do not leave your pushchair on the buggy, do not leave your phone on top of the buggy, do not leave your phone in your back pocket. When we watch the CCTV, people forget that they have any property, children, buggies when they're shopping. They get so immersed in their shopping world. So we are trying to now proactively warn people. And I do say females because that is 95% of the victims are females with children. So we are pushing that message out. The signs we can't get now because they centrally are not owned by the Met anymore. They've been outsourced. So we can't get those. But we are pushing that. And with the Treaty Centre, we were trying to get posters put on their electronic signs. So we're in negotiation because they want £300 per screen, which we are not willing to pay that amount of money. But we are in negotiations. In regards to just one point on the recruitment, sir, sorry, is one of the sergeants on our team is from a Somali background, Sergeant Iman. And just off our patch, the Al Furqan Mosque is a Somali-based mosque. He is actively doing a lot of work there to build it. So he told me today there is an event coming up where there'll be 2,000 people from the Somali community coming. And it's to raise awareness, crime prevention, get them to open up to us, and the recruitment side. I know the recruitment team that the superintendent mentioned are going there as well. We provide people to stalls on the high street when they do the recruitment drives, outside ASDA, outside the Trinity Church, or the Treaty Centre. That's where my team would actively get involved. And I know Josh has been there from a safeguarding point of view as well. So we are actively trying to, and on our team, we have the luxury of having people who speak a number of languages which Hounslow represent. I'm born and brought up in Hounslow. I know all the problems in Hounslow because I went to Heston School and I've moved out the area a couple of years ago. But speaking the language helps us massively in Hounslow. So we speak, all the subcontinent languages. We speak Somali now, and that's the first officer I've worked with from that descent. So we are covering that angle best we can. And we're not just on this team because we speak those languages. It's because we want to be here. Sergeant Randawa, who's the other sergeant, he's born and brought up Hounslow as well. And we wanted to work here because we have family that still reside in the town. My brother still lives on the ward, and a lot of my aunties, and I know some of the councillors do know my family, they live here. So we wanted to be here to help, and we are here to help. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah.
Communication is something which we are looking at as part of the trust and confidence strategy. So how we can get a newsletter, either via email or otherwise, out to people is something which we are looking at how to do that. So the idea would be each ward would be able to at least, over a regular period, send something out via email to people or via OWL or both. Just some key bullet points around what's going on and keep people updated, really, more than anything. So that is something which we are looking to progress as part of the trust and confidence strategy as well, which will help some of that communication. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Bhatti.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My question has already been answered, so it's back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Grewal.
Thank you very much. It's not a question, really. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Councillor Ajmer Gariwal, and I'm Cabinet Member for Safety. So that means that me and my team work very, very closely with the police. And of course, our major commitment in the borough is to protect residents and improve services, and which we are doing by working with the police very closely indeed. We have, I have monthly meetings with Commander Sean Wilson and Superintendent Bennett. There are some incidents which we can't talk about because they're still being investigated, but that doesn't mean that nothing's being done about it. The team go to gold meetings with the police, so we're kept up to date what's happening in the borough. Actually, the leader and I separately met with Sir Mark Rowley, the Commissioner, and we put forward our worries and issues and priorities for the borough, and which were listened to. And as you said, that the police are trying to build confidence, and we need to help the police build confidence and trust. And you can do that by reporting all the crimes. Some people have stopped reporting. They just think police aren't going to do anything about it, forget it. But if they don't know, they can't do anything. So please report, and that way we can work together. I mean, at Martindale Road Gurdwara on Sunday, the police were there out in force. The commander himself, Sean Wilson, was there. And they were there to reassure the public that, we are here trying for you, working for you. And, of course, again, building confidence. Also, there's... you were talking about coffee mornings. There's also a walk and talk with female police officers in the High Street, which is publicised on our website as well. And that's a good place to be. I've been out with them, and people do approach you, and they do come and talk to you. So, be out there, talk to them. I'll tell you a tiny little thing that I was out with my granddaughter, and there was a police officer in Windsor, and as we walked past, he said, "Hello, dear." And she looked at me and she goes, "The police officer said hello to me, hello to me." So build confidence, talk to them. Thank you very much for your reports. You're doing a great job. And I know it's difficult, and I know we can't have answers to every crime, and the police can't be everywhere, but I do assure you that they are trying, and we are trying to keep the borough safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor, for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go with Councillor Chopra, and then I'm going to open it to the public. I'm so sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Just a little bit more about Hounslow West. Inspector Binns, maybe. I know you're new to this area and also to Hounslow West, but I did mention when I'm looking through the minutes for the last meeting, which was many months ago, back in April or something like that. Is it Councillor Chopra asked for street surgeries in Hounslow West? There's been a change of officers and residents want to meet them. The sergeant mentioned she'd pass a request back. I mean, this is something I've been asking for a long time. street surgeries, and it's really difficult because with the officers and residents, it's really difficult, but we're finding that the officers are changing so regularly. Every 6 months we get a new one. It's really hard to build up a relationship and get to know the ward officers. Is that going to change at all? Are we going to have more dedicated long-term officers for a year or two so we can get to know them, they can get to know us, and as my colleague was saying, get to know all the hotspots in the area?
If I just speak for Hounslow West, Sean Bracken's been there for the last few years. He's been working on his own because his long-term colleague's been sick for quite some time. And as we discussed earlier, he has rotational staff coming in to support him. And Udesh, the PCSO, has been there for a long time. He will be leaving us, but he's going to join the police. So we're getting that experience back in. In respect of your wards, it's something that I've been tasking them to work with since I've moved over. I was there a sergeant initially before I was made an acting for the area. And if you're not aware of that, then that's just some work we need to do. I know we've developed that in Cranford with the couple of the Moxie Hotel there. They've given us their area to use as a place to sit and work and invite people in. But there's obviously some more we need to do around Hounslow West. So I'll take that back and I'll task Sean and Andy Davies, who's his acting sergeant, to progress that because it's obviously not getting out.
Sure. And there are quite a few business owners that have said they're happy to let you use their banquet halls or their venues in order to do that.
Yeah, I know there's a couple of the relationship places that we have set up. Granted, it's been temporary and it's not been a permanent fixture. That's something we need to look at. Maybe certainly with the Gurdwara now. I'm sure we can try and make that a bit more of a permanent place every fortnight or do something there. But that's not an issue. We could quite easily resolve that.
I think this is also something which councillors can help with. So, you know, if you've got community groups which you think you want the local officers to meet with, I think, you know, given the fact that, you know, they're covering a lot of, you know, the ward's quite a big area. There's a lot of residents, businesses that sit within that ward. You know, if councillors got key stakeholders they think those teams should meet with, I think there's a slight onus on councillors to then invite the officers to those meetings. And I don't think they'd turn those down, you know, diaries allowing, to actually have those conversations. So if there's key individuals you think, or groups you think those officers should be speaking with or meeting with, please feel free to contact the local team and set up those meetings as well. Because with the demands on the officers, sometimes it's hard for them to arrange those themselves. I think they try and do their best, but as Michael's suggesting, it is quite difficult sometimes to you know, do that alongside all the other commitments we're asking them to do as well. So please be proactive, I suppose, in arranging those you know, get-togethers. So
we have asked for that next week, since the last incident has worried a lot of the local residents. So hopefully we're going to set that up soon.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll, Mike, if we can just make sure that happens.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to open the questions to the public. I do remember there was a gentleman in the corner there, he had his hand up first. Yes, the word. I will take all questions in order. I have got it jotted down, so I will come to you.
Mr. Chair and the Vice, whatever the police officers have said is quite well and good and meaningful. And you all will agree with me that our police is doing the best job in the area. But in spite of their best efforts, the crime is on the increase. What are the reasons for that? Is it the police patrols are less frequent than usual, or what other reasons are? Why is that?
Crimes, I mean, it depends what crimes you're talking about. So some crimes go down, some crimes, you know, we've seen increases in. Crime generally, you know, is, I think in terms of total notifiable offences, we're at a similar level to last year. So we're not really seeing a significant increase in crime. And in some things, I don't have the exact figures with me here, but with some crimes, which I've just mentioned around drug offences, I think victims under 25 in terms of crime, that's down as well. And we've seen some good reductions in things like catalytic converter theft. So across a variety of crimes, we are actually seeing reductions. In some crimes, we are seeing increases. Some of that, when comparing this year to last year, Some of that is around lockdown periods. Last year was still COVID disrupted up to a point, and it's only really end of last year, starting through to this year, that things have been picking up in terms of people getting back to the town centres and also the nighttime economy. So that's driving some increases in terms of just that difference. People weren't travelling as much last year, now they are. So, all these sort of changes in the social and geographical mix do contribute to some crime increases from time to time, but crime do fluctuate, and we obviously try and respond to that where we can. So, as I say, it's a bit more of a mixed picture to say that crime is generally going up, and definitely, within some crime areas, we are seeing some significant reductions.
Thank you. The gentleman,
Hi, my name's Anthony Stoko from Heston Farm Estate. Now, the thing is, though, regarding the Martindale Road situation, where you're now having groups of people going around, now patrolling as if they're like the police, which is a great thing, great passion, but what worries me in this is all it takes is an opportunist to then go out, be in the groups, and then end up committing a similar crime or even more. And for me, to have a group of a group of adults then coming up to certain age groups of children or whatever, because they do look older, because they're tall, going up to this can actually cause more detrimental, bigger problems. So if we can try and deter, or actually try and definitely deter, these groups trying to do something on the police behalf, could that be achieved?
I think we are engaging, with those groups following the incident. So, we've had this happen before in other areas. Southall last year, following a murder, we had similar patrols where people were looking to protect businesses and individuals in those locations. On both occasions, that occasion and this one, we do link in with those groups that are organising those just to try and set expectations. Obviously, we don't encourage vigilante groups going out. And I think, they're doing patrol. So the word vigilante is a little bit loaded, I suppose, in terms of what they're looking to do. But, they'll see it as protecting their communities and giving that visibility. But we have our own officers out in those locations as well. So, hopefully that will sort of mitigate any particular people that want to go out and cause issues. But I know, at the meeting the other day at one of the Gurdwaras, we were having those conversations with them. So where we need to, we'll continue to engage. But yeah, so we realise it does cause concerns, and we do link in with the people. We can't stop it. We can't stop people walking down the street, but we can sort of like make sure that they're aware of what our expectations are, and the fact that we prefer not to do that. But again, we'll support the communities by having our own patrols out as well, so to address those problems. So we're aware of it as an issue, and it's ongoing engagement.
Thank you.
So, do you want to come in, Mike, on that? Yeah.
Earlier.
Yeah,
And it was just to give you some reassurance that over the next few weeks, we already did have some set operations for autumn nights operations that we do every year, and because of the couple of the spikes we saw within the crimes that have been happening recently, we've tasked our sergeants to get some staff together, get some vehicles together, and we've asked for some support from our specialist services, such as some of the proactive patrol sections, to come out and join us over the next few weeks to do some specific planned patrols in areas that we're just starting to see these little spikes come up. They will be very high visibility, a lot of it will be all high visibility. And if we do come across from the groups that we've talked about earlier, there will be this engagement. And if we are sensing that there are groups that are not from the area, who are taking advantage of coming to the area, we have got dispersal powers available to us. It will be looked at. I share your concern. We'll tackle it if it happens, but I think we're already getting to the sort of the root of it by some of the engagements with those people that are doing it on social media. And like I said, if you are aware of people doing it, I think, like you said earlier, we'll advise them accordingly. But we will be out over the next few weeks in great numbers. It's been planned tonight by the officers.
Thank you so much for your feedback.
Thank you. The gentleman near the door.
It's Danny Springgrove Residents Association. I wonder where you can help me to resolve this conundrum and vicious circle. We hear about reduction in crime, increase in crime, resources. We have a very good working relationship with the police, but when reporting goes down, then those crimes which base the statistics on reporting appear to go down, that doesn't mean they have gone down. It means that less has been reported. Your resource, on the other hand, is really tied up to the level of reporting, not to the level of crime. How do you marry these together if you don't interact with the actual communities, either by having people on the street, visibly, or interacting with the actual public?
Yeah.
Could you help me, please?
Yeah, obviously engagement helps. So when we talk about the walk and talks and being out there speaking to members of the public, I was out in Hounslow High Street and doing a walk and talk with officers, and a female came up to me and said she wanted to report a sexual offence. Now, that might not have happened. It was just because she saw us, she thought, well, actually, yeah, I'm going to report that. Now, in terms of that, I think part of that comes down to visibility and how we engage with the public. So we always want people to report crime. And this comes back to the trust and confidence work again. Because if people don't have trust and confidence that we'll deal with that effectively, they won't report it. A lot of work was done over the COVID period around domestic violence and sexual offences to try and encourage people to report crimes, recognising that that period may have caused more offences to occur. What we saw was immediately post-lockdown period, a big spike in reports of sexual offences. And that's partly driven by the fact that there was a lot of media, a lot of police engagement, encouraging particularly women to report such offences. So engagement, encouragement does drive demand. And then, yes, we then have to respond to that demand in terms of resources. What we've got to do is just make sure that we're engaging in the right places with the right communities. That's partly why we are introducing self-reporting hubs in some of the religious establishments to encourage those people that don't feel confident to report things to police directly to do it within their own communities. So, and again, that might drive demand, but we need to know about it, because if you know about it, then, as you say, we can then know what level of resources we need to give to it. And it's a constant piece of work for us to do that. And, you know, I think your question opens up a lot of issues which most probably we don't have time to go into here, because it's mostly quite a complex question. But very much from my side, it's engaging with the right communities, encouraging reporting, making sure we've got the resources to flex into those issues if that does lead to an increase in demand. And then, as I say, just continue that cycle.
You're absolutely right. It is extremely complex. But at the same time, there are great difficulties with the public, not just with the serious crimes, but with those nuisance crimes like littering, where you are working with the councils, have more people collaborating with you, and similarly with the drug offences. Unless you actually are able to report the crime at the time, you are impotent in actually getting a result. And in many cases, the public is afraid of actually tackling the individuals at the time the crime is committed. How do we resolve this conundrum? I don't know. You're right. It's complex. Help me.
Well, it's about encouraging people to report it. So just because someone gets reported after the case doesn't mean it shouldn't be reported, because we can then build up the information relating to that. So for littering, for example, that might be something you'd better off reporting to the local authority. And then if that happens, say, within the town centre area, we've got links in the local authority that we can then have those conversations to see how our antisocial behaviour teams or the town centre teams can then work to try and reduce those issues. So, you know, and I suppose that's the message which we try and get out, is always report it, even if it is a few weeks or whatever, you know, months after the crime, particularly for the more serious offences. So we know what's happening, so we can build up a pattern of behaviour or criminality, which we can then devote resources to. And then obviously that will go through the various tasking processes. So yeah, we need to know about it, but we've got to build up the confidence in the community to report things and not see it as a wasted wasted time for them to do that.
Thank you. The gentleman in the far right with the brown jacket near the screen.
Hello, I'm Alan Ride, CEO of Hounslow Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to compliment Sergeant Bilal Aziz on his performance with him and his team down our High Street. My issue and question is, as we enter into this winter of rising costs, spiralling unemployment, which will increase crime, how long will the council and the police be able to keep this task force down the high street, which is currently doing a really, really good job, and we'd like them to stay there a lot longer, not just to see the numbers come down a little, but to keep them down and to keep that pressure on crime down on our high street to make it a vibrant place to do business and work?
Well, the funding comes from MOPAC, as you can mostly imagine, and I've not heard that funding is going to get withdrawn. I mean, they're only really just been introduced, so obviously we're still waiting for the budget reports to come out. But very much people see value in town centre teams, hence why they were introduced last year and for Hounslow earlier this year. So at the moment, there's no. I've not heard anything about those teams going anywhere, but we'll wait sort of budgetary statements on that. But I don't think they'll be going anywhere anytime soon. Is my sort of understanding on that.
Thank you, gentleman, just on the left of you, Nabila. Just on right. If you could raise your hand, please. Thanks.
Thank you. My name's Nick Hughes. I have moved to Hounslow 18 months ago, having lived in Croydon. Which minority groups are you struggling to get contact with? I've heard a lot of communication about this group, that group, this group, but who is it that the police in Hounslow are struggling to actually communicate with?
The way I would see it is, because that suggests that it's the community's issue that we can't contact them. I think it's an acknowledgement on our side that we need to do more work. So I think communities are willing to speak and listen to us. We've got to just try and work on creating those opportunities. So very much, there's been a push in recent years and ongoing to look at how we speak to young people from the black community. And very much, that is a focus of some of the activity which we undertake locally. From a perspective, we've got very good links into different faith groups. So I think that engagement's going well. But you could argue that young people from those different faith groups, we don't interact as well of. So I think with the more sort of the middle-aged to older people within those communities, again, via our faith officers and the local teams, I think there is that engagement ongoing. But again, it's young people that we really need to link in with more. They're the future. They're the people that, if we want them to join the police, that we want to get those applications from. And I think traditionally we've struggled in the way we do our engagement to do that. So very much sort of black young people and young people from other underrepresented groups is, I would suggest, the ones which historically we've not done the best job around in terms of engagement. So does that sort of answer your sort of question? And I think in terms of specific backgrounds, I think that's about as specific I can get, really.
I'm speaking, I have to be honest, from the LGBT community. Yeah. And I know from bitter experience that trying to get engagement with the LGBT community is notoriously hard. And that it's notoriously hard across the religious spectrums, the theological spectrums. It's also the practice. And certainly from my experience, trying to engage with LGBT as a member of that community, it worries me that finding anything in Hounslow for LGBT, whether it's community engagement with the police or in any other situation, that I find very concerning. Yeah. Because I know from experience, and I speak from the perspective of being a victim of serious homophobia, that it seems to be being glossed over.
Yeah, just to reassure you, we do try and build up relationships with the LGBT community. We've got one of my officers. He's dedicated to looking at hate crime. He's from the LGBT community himself and does a lot of work around Hounslow. He's a Hounslow resident, and very much, we're looking at those engagement opportunities and how we support those communities. So we've done a lot around Pride events and other opportunities locally. What we are looking to try and do is also look at crimes, hate crimes relating to the LGBT community, to see how we've handled those and how we can deal with those better and offer support better. So that's a piece of work which this officer is going to take forward to have a look at. So in a couple of weeks' time at the Hounslow Assembly at Brentford Football Club, he'll be there presenting around hate crime as well. So again, we're trying to do more, but we have been doing work around that over the last couple of years, and the officer is really dedicated to making sure that we progress that. So it is community which we've got to focus on, and we'll continue to do that. But understandably, there's more we can do. If you want details of that officer to link in with specifically, we can provide those to you post the meeting if you'd like to do that. Okay, we can do that. If we can just sort of Pete's details to the gentleman, and then you can engage directly with him. It might be Pete can include in some of the initiatives which he's putting together. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take 3 more questions, then we really have to move on. I'm going to start with the gentleman just here, and then I'll come to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I thought you forgot about me. There was a stabbing incident last Sunday near the local Tesco on the corner of Wellington Road South and Hanworth Road. Do we have any further details on that as to circumstances surrounding that? And more importantly, there's a lot of community concern around that because the local mosque is literally just down the road.
Mike, have you got details of that one?
Just to elaborate on the location, who's asking the question, sorry? Can you just elaborate on the location? I've got a few, but...
It was the local Tesco, Wellington Road South, Hanworth Road.
It wasn't...
Last Sunday evening? I think it was a 14-year-old...
Is that one up near McDonald's?
No.
Heathrow School?
No.
I think it was one of the Tesco's.
Okay, no, sorry, I don't have that one on here. I can't give you any more details than that at the moment, to be honest with you. I can dig through. We have, every week, we have a weekly violent tasking meeting, and it covers Ealing, Hillerden and Hounslow. Unfortunately, there's quite a lot of information of different scales of severity, and some of the ones I've got recorded here are the ones of quite significant severity that I know that have made it into the press. I'm not fully furnished with the details that you might want for that, so I'm not going to pretend I know on that one, if that's okay. But I'm more than happy to try and answer some questions, research it afterwards if you want. I'll just have to dig a bit deeper.
Yeah, that's quite important because obviously the mosque is literally around the corner, and there's a lot of community concern regarding that particular incident. Yeah.
No problem. In relation to that event as such, what concern has come out in particular, apart from it being a violent?
Well, the concern is what type of incident was it? Was it racially motivated? Was it something else? Is it hate crime related?
Okay.
So, the mosque, the community is really concerned about that particular incident.
No problem. Well, I'm more than happy to dig a bit deeper into that. I will be able to find that information, and I'll have a part 2 with you if you want, and you can share that.
Much appreciated.
Thank you. I'm going to move to the gentleman just in front, and then the gentleman behind. Yes, please.
Hi, my name's Taryn. We're a local business owner in Hounslow West. Your question was quite good because it leads on to my next one, which is about another stabbing which happened a couple of weeks prior to that in Hounslow West, where I've seen the footage of it, and it could have been avoided for at least half an hour before. There's loads of incidents. You've got a group of youths who are always hanging outside Hounslow West tube station and the shops across, and they're out there selling drugs. They leave the drugs underneath the bins, which are outside the shops, outside the Strawberry Local. The CID have seen the footage of this. I don't know what they've done. You were saying that we have a sergeant. I've never met the sergeant in the last 2 years. Used to have Dan Cheeseman, but he's moved to Hounslow Central, I believe. And Nicola Harper, no, I forgot the other lady's name, across the road. She's a PCSO. We have loads of people, but there's no engagement, number one. Secondly, there's no patrols or no police even moving on or driving past in night time. When you've got a group of youths at 1 o'clock outside, just hang around shops, they're up to no good. They're only going to be dealing drugs, they're playing music, they're drunk. And when you look at this footage, which I'm not sure you have, this fight, which ended up in a stabbing, could have been avoided. 2 or 3 times it could have been avoided. But because there's no one there, no one to stop them, it just escalated and escalated. And unfortunately, and actually I'd like an update, did the person survive? He got stabbed in the heart apparently with a bottle or a knife or something.
Is that round Ilhaig Close? Yeah. So that person didn't survive. Someone was arrested and they have been charged and they have been remanded in custody. You're absolutely right. It could be avoided, but people choose to, freedom of movement, choose to where they're going to go where they want to go. And at 1 o'clock in the morning outside a shop, which I presume is closed, they're free to do that unless we perceive they're there for a criminal activity or they're causing a disturbance. We can't just presume everybody's there dealing drugs, but you're probably not far off it in some respects. I won't be green to the matter. The idea that they're hiding drugs in the bins is the first I've heard of it, but that's where we encourage this information sharing. And if people are aware of it, they can tell us that information confidentially, and it gives us something to work with. And when we're doing our weapon sweeps, we could look at the bins, we could probably remove that, or we could find out from the council actually as an issue, let's change the bins to the ones that they have in the train stations where they're not on the ground and make it harder to hide stuff. It's all that information that we can use and share with our partners. The neighbourhood teams, the latest they will work to during the weeks, because we look at where our core business is, will be up to midnight, and that's generally on the Fridays and Saturdays, and the response teams take up the rest of that onwards. The response teams who have been on and who've dealt with the Martindale Road job, and there was a few others recently, have been absolutely exceptional in respect of the deployments, the first aid they've given, the scene preservation. They've done a brilliant job, and that's why we've got people in custody. So we work with them, but then we do hand over the area responsibility. I feel your concern, and I would probably make those judgments in areas I live in. Yes, if we had the time to go down the road and engage them, chat with them, we'd probably find out they are there for reasons they shouldn't be. But we just can't just presume that they're there drug dealing. It's a careful balance, as you can probably appreciate. But was there any other questions I didn't answer for you?
I think just in relation to that, I think given the fact that we've had that issue there and obviously that tragic incident, I would hope that the teams should be coming down there really and doing that engagement with yourselves and just speaking about those issues. So, Mike, if we can just make sure that gets happened if it hasn't already done so, given the fact that did happen and there's obviously clear ongoing issues down there, then we do need that engagement and to see how we can improve it. And some of that might be how we, again, one of those linking with the local authority about the environment there. What does it look like? Lighting, is there sort of lots of litter, etc., which make it just an area which people think they can go to and commit antisocial behaviour. We need to really look at that, given what's happened there a couple of weeks ago. So if that hasn't happened, we'll do that. Obviously, a bit like we've been discussing on various points tonight, we need to make sure that yourselves as businesses and the residents that live there are reporting things. We can't always get officers there at that moment in time, but if we're getting a pattern that there's some serious antisocial behaviour, criminality, violence, etc., happening in an area, then obviously with the finite resources we've got, we can then build up a picture to make those decisions about what we need to do. And some of that might be extending the hours which safe and neighbourhood teams work to address those issues, which obviously we can do. We can task our neighbourhood tasking team, which is a BCU-wide resource, to go to those locations post-midnight and patrol those areas as well. So there's lots of options we can do to build resources into a location, but it all starts with having the information there. And sometimes people presume that we know that goes on at that particular place, but given the size of the area which we have to police, that isn't always the case. So we just have to rely on the community really letting us know what's going on so we can take that action. I'm not saying that hasn't happened, but we do need that come in regularly to build up that picture.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you just need to, focus. I know you're doing your walks in Hounslow High Street and everything, but a walk once a month or even every 2 months in Hounslow West, or a surgery at the shops opposite the station, which is the hub. That's the ideal space. You're going to get everyone's interaction and their confidence in you guys. So they will then continue to report it. That will show up in your stats, and therefore then you can justify taking the patrol in that area. But at the moment, we're not seeing anything there.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's not, they're saying, why bother reporting, which I disagree with, but just need to build the confidence with some street surgeries there.
Yeah. Okay, we'll take that as an action, Mike.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it was just to answer the question about staff again. Mr. Cheeseman is, his name's getting repeated. He doesn't cover that ward, he covers another ward. He's just finished an active stint of acting sergeant for us, and he did a great job, but he did say he likes to go back to being a PC, and he's back on his ward. From January, I was the sergeant for the area, up until later on this year, where I was doing an acting up position to support Inspector Sharma. So I'm to blame for you not seeing me, but I will put my hand up for that. There was sporadic problems around the area, and I'm behind the scenes trying to decide where to put my team. And I think, as I touched on earlier, I have quite a wide view, and I'll look at those problems, and I may forego some of the overt capabilities to put officers in plain clothes to try and identify those problems, because quite often you see a fluorescent jacket coming down the street, and it's like when you go to the doctor with an illness, when you get to the doctor, there's nothing ever wrong. When you get there in a high visibility jacket, there's nothing ever there. So I like to try and find them, and the subsequent that is you probably arrest people and go away. It's a vicious circle. I get where you're coming from, but over the next few weeks, you'll see a lot of difference with that.
Thank you. Last question from the gentleman in the back. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, Superintendent, I have just a few questions for you. I know time is limited, but you said you're going to increase the petrol coming through. Do you have a timeline as to when that's going to happen? And we're going to start seeing
PCSOs.
More, correct. Actually, see them actually patrolling the streets rather than just being, a number. And secondly, actually, around the forum that we were talking about. Is it OWL that we currently use? We really don't get a lot out of that, to be honest. We get very few communications coming out of that, and it's reactive, it feels, more than anything else. If you actually go on a forum called Nextdoor, you will see people actually screaming and putting crimes pretty much straight away on that. And if you really want to follow something like that, you just need to go on those forums and actually you will see. And the reason people are not actually, dialing in and getting the complaint to police or anywhere else is because, to be honest, at the end of the day, all you're getting is a letter to say, sorry, we can't help you. Thanks for reporting. Well, what's the point of that?
Well, that wouldn't be the same for every crime. Some things we just can't progress because of the evidential opportunities just aren't there. So that will lead to some responses of that nature. But please be assured we are arresting a lot of people. When I look at the custody suite every day across the three areas, we are very busy in terms of what we're arresting and who we're interacting with in relation to crimes and antisocial behaviour. In terms of the comms, OWL, we should be using that more. So again, we can have a look at that. But as I said a bit earlier to another question around communications, there's other methods we should be using to try and push out our information as well, rather than just relying on OWL, and obviously Twitter we use as well. And that's something we'll try and progress. So maybe we can make improvements in that. Obviously, we've heard your comments about OWL, so we'll take that back and have a look at it and see if we are underusing it and how we can use it better. Very much with my inspectors, I'm driving through that we need to use OWL as much as possible. So there's a number of things we can do on there around crime prevention, alerting people to patterns that might be going on around burglary or robbery, for example. So, how we use that needs to be improved by the sounds of it for Hounslow. But very much I don't want to rely on that when there's other mechanisms we can use to get messages out as well. So it'll be a work in development in terms of those improvements, but we'll take your point and have a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we all, I'm sure we all agree that the two sergeants and the superintendent has done a fantastic job today. So a massive thank you for them for attending and also being so helpful and answering everyone's questions today.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 4 on the agenda. Unfortunately, Kate Bull was meant to be here to present for the future of Hounslow Town Centre visioning, but due to personal reasons, she cannot attend. Therefore, this item will be deferred to the next meeting. And moving on to item agenda number 5, if I could request Chris Durkin to come forward and present for the Hounslow Town Centre Neighbourhood Forum.
Click this away, yeah? When you do that, just click away.
Which one?
This one here.
Yep. Okay, that's the next one.
So, yeah, the next one is coming
Okay,
up.
fine.
Okay.
There we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry we're so late. We were rather hoping that we would be able to talk to quite a few members of the public, but I see that they're going home, which is a great shame. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Hounslow Town Centre Neighbourhood Forum. I've called this talk Looking Forwards, Looking Backwards, simply because I was born in Twickenham and it was the motto of Twickenham many years ago. And now they've changed it for some reason. I think it's very good because looking back in history has always been the great thing that it never replicates itself, but at least it gives you some good idea about what can happen in the future. So that's why it was called that. Right, who we are. I'm Chris Durkin, Chair. Shipra Carr down here is our General Secretary. Those are the details of every way that you can get hold of us. There's one slight mistake there at the very bottom. It says HTC_N. It's actually HTCN_forum. Oh, that's clever. Don't know quite what I did there. Is that the...
Yeah,
that was the next one?
Yeah, you just switched it off, that's why. You were blanked it. You were
Ah,
forward
right,
here.
okay. I think this is one before.
This one?
Yeah, that's it.
This one?
That's the one who we are.
These two buttons, that one and that one.
Okay. Okay, Hounslow Town Centre Neighbourhood Forum Group was created... I'll look at my own notes here, it's probably easier. It was created in 2012 with local residents, local businesses from the Hounslow Town Centre. We've got 21 people on the list that you have to have if you have a neighbourhood forum, which is a legal organisation. It's set up under the Localism Act of 2011. It was set up by Prime Minister Cameron to help everybody have some more say in their local communities. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but if you look at this, you can't actually read it and listen to me at the same time, probably, but that doesn't really matter. If you want a copy of this, the history of Hounslow, you probably don't realise just how important Hounslow is. It was on the main road to Bath, and it was a great staging post of 2,000 horses at one stage in Hounslow High Street at various inns and taverns and places where you could change horses when you went all the way down to Bath, and it would take you hours to get down there, so you had to change very frequently. And after the Battle of Trafalgar, it was the last stop before they went into central London, and of course they had to pass into Hounslow, and the bell there is the pub where the toll gate was. In the bell, you rang the bell and you were allowed to come in as long as you paid the toll money. So we start very early in history. It goes back to the Domesday Book, and it's mentioned in there as Hounslow. And it goes all the way through to the various things. You've probably had a good glance at this, so I won't take too much of your time with this, but it goes all the way up to the modern day in the end. And there are so many things that go on there of huge importance. And as I say, if anybody wants to have a look at this at some stage, I'll be quite happy to send it to you. So we go here right up to the modern day, really. I can't read the screen very well. It's rather difficult standing here trying to look at something sideways, actually, and the Yeah, it's difficult to read off the screen here as well, but never mind. As I say, we're about an hour late, so I need to. I don't want to keep you here too long. There's some random pictures here. I got a lot of this out of a book called Hounslow as It Was, and there's the very old map at the very top on the left-hand side. There is held in Sion House by Lord, whatever he is, Northumberland. There's the old town hall in the middle, the next one along there, so there's various other pictures of the high street and the windmill. This is a very industrious area because of the river, really, and there was lots of great activity on the riverside, and eventually we got the railway, which went down to Brentford Docks, and that, of course, was closed down in the end, but it was extremely busy, so we've had a very great change over all these years. I mean, this was really farmland more than anything else. I've pressed the wrong button again. Sorry.
That's all right. I think you pressed that one now.
Well, this I just press that and it comes back.
There you go.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. And these are the maps which give you some kind of idea about how little there was in Hounslow until relatively recently. It was all farmland, and there's a wonderful picture of Kingsley Road that I've seen, and you wouldn't believe it when you look at it now with the bus station at the end of it. It was all farms, and it was called Sion Hill Farm, I think. So it's been remarkable in the last few years what enormous change has taken place here. And of course the real change that took place was when the airport came along, which actually started in 1919. So people don't realise it goes back that far, because the current airport actually started to build the two major runways in 1946, or 44 rather, which was the year that I was born. So But then we come up today, and I've got a picture up here of the Treaty Centre because it's extremely important. This is the heart of Hounslow, and the latest news that we've heard is the Treaty Centre is going to be demolished and rebuilt. And you can understand as a forum that we are extremely concerned about this, because this is our town centre, and if we don't preserve the town centre, it is going to go into decline. We don't know what's going to happen, and we need to have consultation on this with the council and the planning department. We need to know what is going to take place here. When it was built, this was only built in 1987, or opened in 1987, so this building's only 35 years old. It's perfectly good as it is, and we don't know why it needs to be knocked down and started with again. It's just cynical as far as I'm concerned. I just think this is a developer who wants to make huge amounts of money very quickly, and the only way that they can do that is by building flats. And they build flats and they sell them at very high prices, and we find out at the moment all the other flats, I think about 80% of them, still need to be occupied. So we don't know why, other than the fact, as I say, that people want to make money out of this. This is extremely worrying, and they're going to take away most of the shops and what little we know about at the moment. So the first thing I want to say is that we need to know, and we need consultation, and the consultation has got to be proper consultation. In other words, that the council or anybody else just listens to what we say and then ignores everything that we say to them. They really must engage with this. This is the heart of Hounslow. This is the only shopping centre in the London Borough of Hounslow. There is nothing else to compete with this. If we take this away, we have nothing. So the first thing that I will say to you is please come and join us so that we can demonstrate to the council and everybody else what we want to do. We are nothing to do with the council. I happen to be at the Hounslow Chamber of Commerce, but that's something that's entirely business. This is non-political. It's just simply us residents under the Localism Act trying to say that we want our views heard very clearly, and make sure that when you've heard those views, you do not ignore them. because believe me, I'm not going to see Hounslow destroyed as it was when this was built and they took away the north-south access. We still don't have that. We have this ridiculous one-way system, which is so long to travel around with all the pollution. You've got two roads there. I think Steve Biko Way, I have no idea why that can't be two-way. I have no idea why Hounslow Road can't be two-way, and cut off this ridiculous one-way system. Also, when it was pedestrianised, the high street, it really took away everything that people could see. So now people go down Grove Road, they go down Hamworth Road, and they go behind, and they see the back end of the shops, and they are really quite disgraceful to look at. And people drive through and say, Hounslow, why would I go there? Because they can't see anything. So if we're going to have something done to this, what we need is the shops to be shown on the other side of it. But I think that we should actually take an opportunity here to actually increase the footprint of what the treaty centre, if it's going to come down, and widen Bell Road, for example, and make a north-south access or something like that. And we can, I would still think it was a great idea to be able to go through the town centre, but if you can't do that, then you can see it down Hamworth and Grove Road. You can see what the opportunity is here. If you knock down the treaty centre, you're going to take away the Paul Robeson Theatre, as it was called, and you also have various other things in the treaty centre which I think that we need. And when the treaty centre was knocked down, it got rid of Treaty Road. And Treaty Road had a swimming pool in it. Now, I've seen the development that Ballymore has got when you go up towards Waterloo, and on the left-hand side, if you look out of the window, you can see that they have a swimming pool which is suspended between two tower blocks. And if they can do something like that, and you're going to knock this down, I just simply think that we could have a swimming pool back in our town centre. We need a theatre there, we need entertainment. This is something where we need to work, rest and play, as the old Mars Bar Advert used to say. We need to have a town centre where people can come and live here, work here, and be entertained here. So the first thing is, please, please, come and join us in our quest to try to do something about Hounslow and its future. I think, there we go, what could be done? Excuse me a moment. Right, it seems that the present retail outlets will greatly be reduced and replaced with more housing. And as I said, we've got so much more housing across the road. We've got the 27-storey building over there. We were instrumental in the building of this because we had the forum going quite a long time ago when it was just a great big car park at the Blenheim Centre. So we spoke to the council, we spoke to Brendan Walsh at the time, and we said to him that we want somewhere where people can walk around safely and do their shopping. And they said, it's going to be difficult. And we said, well, we want underground car parking. And they said, no, you can't have that because it's far too expensive. So in the end, we said, no, you've got to go away and come up with another plan. And they did, and they came back and they showed us Siena Piazza in Italy. And they showed this big campanile in the corner, and I looked and I thought, what are they getting at here? And of course what they said was, if we build you a 27-storey building, we can have 2 floors of underground car parking, and that's what we've got. So you see that over there now, but this means you look at the mirror over here and you're going to get many more flats. This is not what we want unless we get something with it. They have to pay something with those flats. We don't mind more flats. We can't stop it because I think that the mayor and the central government are telling us that we have to build more flats. We have to house more people. So it's a problem that is not made by us. But if we're going to do it, somebody's got to pay the price for that, and they're not just going to walk away, make huge amounts of money, and leave us with a town centre that's devoid of anything that's worthwhile having. the rear of the current buildings, as I said, it's just a disgrace, really. You go down there, it's not just the treaty centre, it's when you go what was the old Brentford nylons, and you see some of these places, the fish shop on the right-hand side and various other things. It really is a tip. And people driving through there will say, why would I go to Hounslow? So something has got to be done about that as well. So I think that this is an opportunity with the Section 106 money to see what we can do. I'm not against the council, I have to say to you. I know many of you out here, and I know that you're trying to do your very best for us, but I know that things are difficult to do this. So I'm not against you. I want to work with you in every possible way. But the forum is a legal setup. It is under the law. We have got our constitution. We have got the area which was designated as the central area ward. About 17,000 people, I think, when we looked at it last time. So there's a lot of people in here, and there's a lot of other people who would not come here. You've got miles to Kingston, which is your only proper shopping centre around here, or Ealing. We need this, and I believe that the town centre master plan is actually saying that this should be a good shopping centre. So please, please take note, and we want to do something, as I say, and work towards the same things basically that we all want. Now I've lost the clicker. That's us. Please engage with us. We're going to try working on the Facebook page again. Apparently we have 800 followers. So if you can actually go on there, we have written HTCN_forum properly at the bottom there. Heart of Hounslow. Made in Hounslow is on that as well. And young Alan over there with the wonderful beard was the man who made that. And it's still up there. Then you can still watch it and the great ideas that he had. So please, please try and join us. Shipra has got the piece of paper down here, which reminds me, of course, at Heston Airport, which was Peace in Our Time, when that was waved about. Another bit of history. But I think that's about it from me because we're running late and I've sort of ad-libbed a bit here, but thank you for listening anyway.
Thank you, Chris. I'm going to open to questions from the councillors first. Councillor Bruce.
Sorry, Chair, it's not actually a question, more a comment, or a few comments, in fact. So firstly, thank you very much, Chris. I think he's absolutely right. I would, my name's Tom Bruce. I'll start there. Some of you know me. I'm a councillor. I'm the cabinet member for regeneration and development. So all of what Chris has talked about falls under my cabinet portfolio. I agree. I absolutely agree with almost everything that Chris said. I hope you'll be pleased to hear. Number one, please do get involved in the forum. And if you don't want to get involved in the forum, please do let us know your views in whatever way you would like to, on the town centre, on things that are happening, all those kind of things. But the forum is a good way of channeling that. So I would encourage you to do that. What you were saying specifically, there were a couple of things. There was the town centre in general, and then there's the treaty centre. So just on the town centre in general, we've got a couple of things happening at the moment. We have a visioning document, which is about how we see the town centre working for the community. We've had lots of engagement on that. Lots of people have put in. I don't know whether any of you have had the opportunity to do that. We had some sessions before the election and some more recently, and we've spoken to councillors. So that's a really important thing for us to understand exactly what people want. It doesn't mean we can do all of that stuff, but it does give us a clear indication of the direction of travel we should be going in. More specifically, and I think Chris alluded to it, there is a town centre master plan. We have a draft town centre master plan for 2 areas at the moment. We have 4 town centres, but the 2 that we have in draft form at the moment are Hounslow and Brentford. So for Hounslow, that means how things, on a more specific level, how things are going to be developed, the types of development we want. And when I talk about development, I don't just mean housing, I do mean retail. And coming on to the treaty centre, we are clear as a council that the treaty centre development, it has been bought and they are looking at options, but we are clear as a council that what we want is a continuation of the retail element. Absolutely clear. That's what our visioning document says, that's what the site allocation stuff says, that's what all our documents going excuse me. So we're very clear on that. That doesn't exclude housing on the site, but it does include, it's very clear that retail is a really important aspect. The High Street Quarter shows, when you add in that entertainment factor, additional nice spaces for people to be, how much you can increase that footfall. I mean, I think one of the police officers said it earlier, Hounslow High Street is busy all the time. And that is a fantastic thing, considering our current climate. But what I'm hearing, where I live down in the south of the borough, on the border of Richmond, I actually work as a teacher in Richmond, is the children at my school, who are not close to Hounslow, talk about now going to Hounslow because of the activities they can do. So we're increasing that footfall for people who weren't there previously, and we're encouraging people to stay there. Getting rid of the treaty centre is not something that's in the interest of me as a resident, you as a resident, or as the council as a whole. So I want to be clear on that. You're absolutely right about the back of the treaty centre. It's awful. I've said it for years. And talking to the treaty centre owners, I'm not going to share what they've said about this, but I have shared that with them. I've shared all of this, and they know all of this because they're involved in talking to officers about this. I want to be clear on that, on all the different things. But I have said that needs sorting out because it's not an attractive place. Because when you walk up from where I live, in Hounslow South, and you walk up from Hounslow Train Station and you look at Hounslow High Street, well, you can't see the High Street. You don't know there are shops there. It looks terrible. You're absolutely right. So that, the attractiveness, the way that the public realm works, all of those things are things that we want to be part of with that developer and making sure that the town centre works for everybody. So coming back to what I said at the beginning, the treaty centre developers, whatever proposal they come through with, they need to engage, and I would urge you to engage with it. The things you like, as well as the things you don't like, and that will be really important in shaping how we go forward. Sorry, Chair, I know I've taken a long time, but I hope that's been helpful for people in exactly where the council is on these things. We seem to agree on quite a lot, particularly on this. I mean, I'm saying the council and the forum, so that's a good place to be at the moment.
Thank you, Tom. I mean, one point on that was, as Alan Rice pointed out to me the other day, that there's a video that shows that the town centre and the treaty centre in particular was at its busiest that it's ever been. So again, why anybody wants to knock down something that is successful? I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, as the Yanks say. So I don't understand it really, and I think that they are being a bit cynical about it because they know there's much more money to be paid because land values in London now are so great. You have to build upwards. So it means that we're going to have more skyscrapers or certainly much taller buildings. I don't know what the restrictions are. Maybe central government say now you can't build it that high. But what I'm saying is that the Treaty Centre and Hounslow, I walked down it with an architect the other week and he said, I can't believe how busy it is. And it's absolutely stuffed with people all the time. And that was all throughout the day. So, Hounslow is busy. I think it's got the highest footfall in all of the other London boroughs of their high street. It's a low spend, I know that, but we need actually to then try to get some of the bigger shops back. We've lost Woolworths. People don't believe me when I say we had a Waitrose in the middle of the high street. If we could get somebody like this back, we could really make this place a huge success. So please engage. Any more questions or comments?
Sorry, Chair, can I just come back in? I know what you're saying about not redeveloping, but I think, with the owners, there will be a combination of things that they will look at. But redeveloping doesn't mean losing the shops. It means looking at that space in a different way.
Yep.
And going back to one of the other things you said, sorry, I meant to say this earlier, was I do say to developers whenever I meet them, I say, right, fine, you want 14 stories or 10 stories or this and that and something else. What are you giving me? And by me, I mean the council, by the residents of the council. I want people to know that is something I say. What are we getting from you? You want that, fine. Let's talk about that, but I want to talk about what I want and what the residents want, and that's where the engagement comes in. So that's why that's really important for me, and it's definitely important for us. But, I'm very positive about all these different things coming forward. I think, they could potentially have some very exciting ideas about what can happen there.
And the number one thing that we did last time when we got the wish list, far and away the number one thing was a swimming pool. And I know we've got one in Heston, but that's bloody miles away as far as I'm concerned. And we could have a lovely swimming pool in that place. It doesn't have to be huge, not even as big as this room, but I mean something like that. And I tell you what, if you talk to the developers about it, the people buying those flats to say, wow, we've got a swimming pool on the premises. So What's not to like? I think you've heard enough from me. Thank you very much for listening.
Chris, I think we got one question from a resident.
Hi, yeah, actually, you know the area. So basically, just around the corner from there, you've got a private gym with a swimming pool in there anyway. Just saying anyway. But the thing where you're saying, why can't we actually entice bigger companies to come back to the Treaty Centre? All mainstream shops are actually gone from there. Now, if you go in there, it's only either game shops, pound shop, or relatively low-key shops compared to what it... I think the Top Shop is the new one there, on the corner or whatever it is.
Unlock your phones, they're all over the place.
So, yeah, but the rest... my point that I'm trying to get to is I'm actually more up for recycling what we have in Hounslow anyway, or confirm, well, nearly to what you're saying about updating and upgrading. So with the amount of damage where they keep closing shops down in there, and then you used to have the job centre there, the library all there, all mainstream stuff, which has actually had a big impact to the community, especially when you're taking away libraries for children, blah and blah. So my answer to you is, why can we not entice bigger companies to come back to that?
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. If you have this new town centre development, I mean, this is one of the things that we should have. Not only did we have Waitrose, but remember, we lost Woolworths, we lost Debenhams, we lost Marks and Spencers. I don't know how many other big shops that we've lost as well. And yes, we've got to get somebody back. If you don't have one thing, I know we've got H&M, but it's a small shop, and we've got a couple of other shops like that. We've got TK Maxx and a few shops. But you had a big Co-op store that, again, people don't remember, it was about 5 stories high, and you could get everything in there. It was a really good shop. We've lost all these things over the years, so we need to encourage these people to come back to Hounslow.
Thank you. I think you got one more question on the far right of the room.
It's me again. Just for Councillor Bruce, is also for Chris. Well done for that. I know you said about your pupils, or your, talking about coming into the borough. It's great for the youngsters, but we also really need to think about the elderly. And with the treaty centre,
elderly.
we're all going to get there one day. But just with the treaty centre, it is a little social hub down there.
Yep.
And that, I think, will be really key to make sure, no matter what they do, I know we're talking retail, but community use is probably prime. For me, it's like the number one thing, because it's got to be a safe environment. Coming back to policing, like the whole thing for today, if you create a great indoor safe area for the elderly, I think that will be paramount, and I think that will complement the whole development, whether it's 500 stories high or whatever.
Right. Thank you, Taran.
Could you tell us what's the percentage of the flats occupied by the tenants?
I have no idea about this. This is one of the problems.
Well, there you are. I mean, it's a waste of money, I would say. 50% of the flats are lying vacant. They can't be let out because the rent is too high. They can't be sold because the price is too much. What's the idea of bringing these high-rise flats?
Well, as far as I know, the flats have been
Chris,
sold.
Can I cut you off there? Sir, this is not a question.
The money which is tied up in those flats could have been used for the betterment of the children in the schools. Poverty should have been solved. Teachers should have been engaged. More teachers should have been engaged.
Yep.
And various other things you could have done with that money.
Come and join the forum, and we can discuss these kind of things, and we can get something done.
It's an important area. Should I answer your question? I'll answer your question. So I think we need to be very clear about what we're talking about here, okay? We're not talking council development. First of all, the treaty centre is not owned by the council. It's owned by a private developer. So just before we get confused, what I'm saying, no, let me just finish. So before we get confused about, it's the council have done this, the council have done that. The private developer will engage, I hope they need to, in order to get through planning, but they will engage with residents and ask for opinions. So Taran's point about that and your point about swimming pool, they will want to hear those views, and they will put forward an application to the council. Council will decide on policy whether it's compliant to go through, whatever that is that they want to do. This is the same with absolutely any development. When you're talking about empty properties, I think what you're talking about, and this is what lots of people say, and it's not about the council spending loads of money building stuff to be empty. We're talking private developers. Now, private developers are free to spend, whether I like this or not, whether you like this or not, are free to spend their money where they want once they get planning application. It's about fulfilling the policy requirements. Policy requirements have to be, our policy requirements have to be compliant to the national policy, which is set by the government. Now, as a Labour council and a Tory government, do I necessarily agree with all the policy requirements of the national government? I don't. I'm not going to go into detail about that. What you're highlighting are issues with the housing system. I absolutely know that. I fully agree with you. But it's not about the council spending money building stuff that is then vacant. That is on the developer. So the developer can sell it, they can rent it out or not, but it is about them recouping their costs. Separate to that, most big developments have to have an affordable element. Now, you and I, and we can all argue what is affordable, and that's another point that I have issue with, and Karen's nodding next to me, we have issue with, but it is about fulfilling these national and local requirements for housing. So this is a complex area. I won't pretend it isn't. It is a really complex area. But I just want to be really clear. It's not about the council just going, we're going to do this and that's it, and we don't care. It's about us trying to fulfill the requirements of the policies and sort of, insisting, well, definitely insisting that developers do that as well. But these empty properties are not on the council. The ones you're talking about mostly, yes, we have some void issues. Of course we do, but very few. It's about that private developer. Is that clear?
How would you define
I'm going to stop you there.
Affordable homes.
I'm going to stop you there.
It's a really hard issue. I agree. Affordable, what does that mean? Absolutely.
Sorry, Councillor Bruce. I'm going to stop you there. If you need to discuss this further, we can do it in the open forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, everybody.
Okay, now moving on to the open forum. I'm just going to remind everybody, all questions must come through myself before they go anywhere. Thank you. It's now open. The first question is going to be through Councillor Pritam Grover.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. On behalf of residents of Hounslow Centre, or Old Hounslow really, there are still some people sitting here. There were 25, 30 people came and they're gone because it's taken a long time. Anyway, before the pandemic, I think Bill knows, these people have brought this issue of High Street into the area forum, area committee in those days, and it was agreed that officers will look into that and resolve this as much can be done. Hasn't been done, nothing. There were three things they are asking for. They're asking for extra bench there, because a lot of people gather there. They have no room to sit during the daytime. So extra bench will help them to, to have some more seats available there. Yeah, and the other thing is outside next. There are a couple of benches already there. The only thing council has done so far is move the bin, because people were coming there and smoking and using the bin there. Thank you for that. But the issue is, when people, 20, 25 people sitting on the bench, one person comes and starts smoking in the middle of them, why should these people suffer the passive smoking? And all they're asking for is a no smoking sign there, so the people who come there would not smoke. So two issues, they want an extra bench and a no smoking sign there. And can somebody speak on that, please?
Thank you, Councillor Grohl. I believe we have Cindy Gardner from Hounslow Highways. She'll be able to answer your question on that one.
Thank you, Chair. Just to correct you, I'm from the recycling team. I'm representing the Highways Head of Service. So thank you for your question, and I know that this has been going on for a long time. So if you forgive me, I'm going to read out this because I want to make sure that it's accurate for the audience. So, following the request, we have sought legal advice as to whether the council can stop someone smoking in open air. So the response from a criminal litigation lawyer at HB Law is as follows.
Sorry, Cindy, can you speak into your mic, please? Sorry.
Okay, Okay, so just to go over that, the response that we've received from a criminal litigation lawyer at HB Law is as follows, and HB Law is the council's legal advisor. So the lawyer has looked over legislation to see what options the council may have to create smoke-free zones on Hounslow High Street. The council has been advised that there is no legislation the council can use to stop people from smoking in a public place. Smoking has been banned from certain outdoor locations that are substantially enclosed, like football grounds, football stadiums, covered walkways and on railway platforms. Also within children's playgrounds, there is signage about refraining from smoking, but again, there's no enforcement that can be taken. It is a self-policing environment. So to legislate to stop someone smoking in open air, which is a public space, the council would have real difficulty in obtaining leave from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. We'd need to make a bylaw under the bylaws regulations 2016 as to what is proposed stopping people smoking in a public space, is inconsistent with general law and government policy. The lawyer has provided the bylaws regulations and advised the council that it would be very difficult to introduce a bylaw for secondary smoking outdoors. And the lawyer has not recommended us pursuing this route. Our lawyer has asked us to consider if this is actually a local problem or a request from residents that are occupying those benches during visits to the high street. So are the smokers in the town centre causing a nuisance to the detriment of others using the seating area? If they are not, a secondary smoking outdoors bylaw would not be considered proportionate. The government has not created a law to deal with outdoor smoking, despite calls from local government to do so. So it would be difficult to pass such a local law against this backdrop. There does seem to be movement in this area by public health, but the first thing that will happen is a smoking ban in outdoor eating areas. It may be that the law should develop in this area, and then as a local authority we can introduce a local bylaw to support that.
Yeah, Councillor Grow.
Yes, thank you for that. But I have been told it has happened in other boroughs. Other boroughs have done it. If they have done it, why these people should suffer passive smoking? If they have done it, why can't we do it?
I'd be really interested to know what local authority that is, because the lawyer has done due diligence on this and not found a case study.
Obviously, they'll come back to you.
Yeah.
They haven't got a paper with them, but they're the people who sort of sit there. But I know it's a nuisance when people sit in there and somebody comes and smoke in the middle. Some people do that intentionally as well. And I personally think, it's my personal view, I can't see any harm there if we can put some kind of little areas in High Street that there people cannot smoke in this area. And even if we have to change the local bylaws or something, why can't we do it? And then come to the bench. I think I've been sort of assured by Victoria Lawrence that a bench can be provided. Can you tell the gentleman there as well that?
Yeah, I can confirm that if other benches are required on Hounslow High Street, we're more than happy to look at that. What we'd suggest is if you could put forward the location, giving the High Street location, the shop number of where you'd like to see the bench, we can look into that. I would say, though, that benches at the Bell Square end of the High Street are not likely to be reinstated because of the antisocial behaviour that was there previously, and that's the reason why we had those benches removed.
I understand that, but sorry, through you, Chair, but it's coming towards next. It's not the Bell Junction, it's coming this end.
Yeah.
And all they need is one more bench there. Next to that, there are two benches there already. And I've seen a lot of people sitting there, a lot of people standing there as well. So it's well used. I mean, all they're asking is one bench there, and obviously look into the sort of bylaws, local bylaws, please.
Yeah, we can definitely look at the bylaws, and I'd be interested to know the local authority that's had success in banning smoking in a public space. And the bench, if you let us know the exact location, we can do it. I think that might be one of the locations where a bench was removed before, but I'll come back to you on that. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Garal. I'm going to move on now to Yag. He's previously submitted a question. If you could come up. He's going to go first.
Oh, basically, it's a question I want to... I should go to camera, actually. Let me just go... 1 second.
About 3 years ago, we put in a petition.
Sorry, just can I...
Sorry, you've interrupted the question.
Sorry.
I'll come to you next.
Basically, I live in Hounslow Heath area, ward, sorry. Basically, I wanted to know the problems we have in that Munster Avenue. We have so much issues in that road area. There's parking issues, for a start. People parking on the main footpath there. There's on Staines Road. We've got issues with that. And also, another thing is that corner shop, I think, what was it called again? Cozy Lounge, yeah. That is a nuisance area which we need to sort that out, because I know it's an ongoing problem, but we've not heard anything what's happening with that area. And also the road itself, the Munster Avenue Road. I just want to ask the question to the highways, if you can see, you can ask the question. We have been promised that the road will be done so many times that the road will be done like repairs to it, like the road is deteriorated. Even the footpath itself, it's just, people can't even walk properly there. I mean, the area is just getting worse and worse every time. I walk normally in that area. I live in that area, obviously, so we have so much, even the people who live within the area are fed up now, really honestly. Especially that first corner of the Munster Avenue where the cozy shop is. It's just terrible. I drive there every day going in and out of that road, and it's just terrible. I don't know how even the ambulance, probably, if you can come sometime in that road, you cannot park the area. It's just double parking all the time. So if you can please let us know what the situation is going to be happening.
Bill.
I noted you did have a question for the police as well, Yag, but you can come back with that bit. With the parking, I've contacted someone senior in parking. I'm afraid he hasn't got back to me yet. As soon as he does, I'll pass the answer on to you, and I'll add it to the minutes for public consumption, as the minute has been question has been asked in the meeting. For the first part, from Hounslow Highways, I contacted Sir Bill Khan, who's head of PFI. He was hoping to get here tonight. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to attend, but he has given a written answer to that, which is the council have commissioned Hounslow Highways to carry out a panel repair on Munster Avenue at the junction of Connaught Road, as well as further carriageway repairs at the nearby Midsummer Avenue. The council have committed to improving footways across the borough, and Munster Avenue is already on the assessment list for this administration pledge. The final assessments will occur over the winter and spring, and a 3-year programme of works will begin next summer, looking at footways in need of renewal that are not treated within the PFI agreement term.
I think Councillor Chowdhury, your ward councillor, would like to say a few words.
Thank you so much. As you know, Councillor Rahman will know as well, recently we have picked up this separately about the Cozy launch. I have personally had lots of complaint from the local food shop as well, from the Maya Food. And I think previously Councillor Kiani and Councillor Vikram Giriwal was looking into this as well. But now we've come to a stage where daily basis we are receiving issues and the complaints about the parking. I've witnessed it myself. So I've requested an on-site meeting with the parking enforcement team, because I know when the cars are parked there is no one to issue them PCN. So that was picked up a couple of weeks ago as well, but I'm still waiting for the meeting. And another thing, I have requested for the two roads to be prioritised, Munster Avenue and the Midsummer Avenue. And I've spoken to the leader about that as well. But if you like, I can invite you when we have an on-site meeting for your views there, and you can come and join us.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'm going to take his first and I'll come to you after.
About 3 years ago, we put in a petition signed by schools of people to mark a no smoking area in the high street. But we are still waiting for the answer for that. Now, I have seen that some notices have been put up, no drinking in the high street or other public places. But regarding smoking, nothing has been shown.
I think Cindy has answered that question already. She did say that there is no law to stop putting no smoking in public places. I think that question's already been answered.
And they're looking to the local bylaws.
Yeah, she did say that she would look into the local bylaws. I think that's just following on from Councillor Grau's question. But she will look into the local bylaws and see what we can do from there. Okay?
Can I just come back? My colleague has just provided me with, it's Oxfordshire that's attempting to ban smoking in public places as part of public health and second-hand smoke. So I'll definitely have a look at what Oxford are doing and take that back to the team. Thank you.
Okay, and gentleman in the back.
Final one from me, Chair. Just regarding my ward, which is Hounslow West, ward meetings, we're supposed to be having them monthly or quarterly. We haven't had them for quite a while. Can you just let me know when they can be organised, please?
Yeah, your ward councillors are here. Did you say ward meetings?
Yeah, I believe Councillor Sharma is the secretary, so you would know. Hounslow West, he's asking.
Do you want me to come in?
I think he's asking Hounslow West ward meetings. When will they have them? Do you want to use the mic?
I'm trying to use the microphone. No one can hear you. Sorry.
That's the part.
I have not been approached. I'm the chair of the board. I don't know what you are talking about, the Labour Party or Tory Party. I don't know what's the issue here.
Sir, can you explain exactly what you mean? Because I think there's a bit of confusion.
Sorry, I think it's a Labour Party ward meetings. Just wondering, we're supposed to be having them maybe month or quarterly. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn as a Labour thing here, but I know it's a council thing. Just wondering, because the councillors are here, if we're going to have one this year or next year.
Chair, I'm just going to come in. Thank you so much, Tarun, for this, but I think this is a separate matter, as Labour Party meetings are completely separate. You can write to your CLP. I'm your Vice Chair of Feltham and Haston CLP, and I'll speak to you after the forum ends.
Yes, Councillor.
Going back to the High Street issue, Councillor Chaudhary, can you look into that, please, from the public health side? Public health, yeah? You're the lead member for that.
Oh, yeah, I will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? That's it? Are we done? Okay, on behalf of me and my team, we'd like to thank everybody for coming.
Could you remind people?
Well done, Chair.
Can you there's some feedback surveys on around when you leave, if any of you can fill them out. And just we'd like to say thank you to Nabila, Bill, Emily, and everyone that's helped us today. Thank you.